On July 8, 1990, in a stadium in Naples, a grown man named Roberto fell to his knees and sobbed into the grass. He wasn't injured, nobody had died, a ball had simply failed to cross a line. And yet in that moment, millions of people watching at home felt the exact same crack open in their chests, a grief so real it could ruin a week, a month, sometimes a marriage. Here's the strange part. Most of those people had never met a single player on that team. They would never meet them. So why did it hurt like losing family? Football didn't do that. Your brain did. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you what actually happens inside the human mind during a World Cup, and it's far weirder than you think. You'll learn why an entire country can feel one emotion at the exact same second, why winning a match can spike crime in some cities and lower heart attacks in others, why your sense of who you are can secretly depend on 11 strangers in matching shirts, and why, when your team scores in the final minute, your body floods with the same chemicals as someone falling in love. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll never watch a game the same way again. Let's start with the most basic question. Why do we care at all? There's a psychological concept called social identity theory, and it explains almost everything about World Cup madness. The idea is simple but powerful. A huge part of who you think you are doesn't come from inside you. It comes from the groups you belong to, your country, your city, your team. When you say "we won," you've quietly merged your own identity with a group of people you've never met. Their victory becomes your victory. Their failure becomes your shame. Psychologists even have a name for the winning side of this. They call it basking in reflected glory. Researchers notice that after a home team wins, people are dramatically more likely to wear the team's colors the next day, and far more likely to say "we won" instead of "they won." But when the team loses, suddenly it's "they lost." The pronoun changes, the distance returns. We bond ourselves to winners and quietly disown losers, and most of us have no idea we're doing it. But here's where it gets even stranger. During a World Cup, this effect doesn't just happen to a few diehard fans, it happens to an entire nation at once, and that creates something almost no other event on Earth can produce: total emotional synchrony. Think about what a World Cup goal actually is. In a single instant, tens of millions of people in the same country jump out of their seats, scream the same word, throw their arms in the air, and grab the nearest stranger. Scientists who study this call it collective effervescence, a term coined over a century ago to describe the electric feeling humans get when a crowd moves and feels as one. It's the same force behind religious gatherings and ancient rituals. For most of modern life, we've lost it. We scroll alone, we eat alone, we feel alone in rooms full of people. The World Cup is one of the last moments where millions of strangers feel genuinely, physically united, and your nervous system is desperate for it. That hunger explains something we see every 4 years. People who don't even like football suddenly find themselves screaming at a screen. It was never really about the sport. It was about belonging. Now let's talk about your body, because it's doing things you'd never expect. When your team is winning, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of craving and reward, the same one involved in gambling, in social media, in falling in love. A last-minute goal doesn't just make you happy, it gives you a genuine neurochemical high. That's why people describe big wins as the best feeling of their lives, sometimes ranking it above their wedding day. They're slightly embarrassed to admit it, but chemically, they're not exaggerating. And when your team loses, testosterone drops. Researchers tested male fans before and after matches and found that the hormone levels of supporters rose and fell along with their team, as if they had played the game themselves. Your body doesn't fully understand that you're sitting on a couch. As far as your hormones are concerned, you were on that pitch, fighting for survival. Which leads to something genuinely dark. Studies in several countries have found that domestic violence reports spike after the national team loses an important match. One major study in England found reported incidents rose significantly on days the team played, and even more when they lost. Let that sink in. A game with no real stakes for the viewer can change behavior inside people's homes. That's how deeply the brain fuses identity with the outcome. When the team loses, some part of the fan feels personally defeated, personally humiliated, and for people who already struggle to regulate emotion, that feeling turns into something destructive. But the body keeps surprising us because the effect runs in both directions. On the days a country wins, something beautiful can happen to public health. Researchers have found that heart attack rates and even overall mortality can dip during winning runs, lifted by collective joy and a sense of shared hope. The same event that darkens some homes brightens others. A World Cup, it turns out, is not just a tournament. It's a nationwide emotional experiment performed on millions of nervous systems at once. And here's a part most people never think about. The agony is the entire point. Most fans, if you ask them, would say they want their team to win easily. No stress, no suffering. But that's not actually what keeps them watching. Psychologists who study why we love sports point to something called eustress, good stress, the unbearable tension of a penalty shootout, the dread, the not knowing. Our brains are wired to crave uncertainty because uncertainty is where the biggest dopamine hits hide. A guaranteed win would feel hollow. It's the possibility of heartbreak that makes the joy electric. We don't watch despite the pain, we watch because of it. This is the same mechanism behind the slot machine, the cliffhanger, the unread text from someone you like. The maybe is more addictive than the yes. Now let's bring this into the modern world because the World Cup of today lives somewhere new, your phone. A generation ago, the heartbreak of a loss faded as you walked away from the television. Today it follows you. The replays, the memes, the arguments in the comments. Social media has turned every match into a permanent, inescapable event you carry in your pocket, and it's changed how fans suffer. There's now a strange grief in losing not just the game, but the feed afterward. The days of watching rival fans celebrate, of being tagged, of reliving the worst moment on a loop. The pain used to have an ending. Now the algorithm keeps it alive. And there's a deeper modern shift underneath all of this. The rise of the parasocial bond. Today's fans don't just support a flag, they follow individual players through their phones, watching their morning routines, their families, their private thoughts in tiny vertical videos. Your brain processes this closeness as a real relationship, even though the player has no idea you exist. So when that player misses the decisive penalty, you don't just feel let down by an athlete, you feel betrayed by someone you thought you knew. The intimacy is one-sided, but the heartbreak is very real. We have never in history been this emotionally close to total strangers, and the World Cup turns that closeness into a pressure no human was built to carry. Some players have spoken about the crushing weight of millions of personal relationships resting on one kick. So step back and look at the whole strange picture. A World Cup is, on paper, just a series of games, men and women running after a ball. But what's really happening is one of the largest psychological events the human species ever stages. For a few weeks, borders on a map become tribes in the blood. Strangers become brothers. A single moment can lift a nation's health or darken its homes. Hormones rise and fall in people who never left their living rooms. And millions of us willingly hand our emotions over to 11 people we'll never meet, knowing, somewhere deep down, that they might break our hearts. The remarkable thing isn't that football makes us feel this way. The remarkable thing is what it reveals. That underneath all our modern isolation, all our screens and our distance and our carefully guarded independence, there's still a primal part of us that aches to belong to something bigger than ourselves. We've just forgotten how to find it. So the next time you feel that lump in your throat, as a stranger in your country's colors steps up to take the final kick, don't be embarrassed by it. That feeling isn't foolish. It's ancient. It's the oldest part of you, the part that once needed the tribe to survive, reminding you that you were never meant to feel everything alone. Maybe that's the real reason the whole world stops to watch. Not for the football, but for the rare and fragile chance to feel like one of us all at the same time.